Hi everyone. In today's demonstration, we're going to be demonstrating one of the project templates that's available in the version 14 of Simple GIS Client. And it's a template that is probably familiar to those that have used the version 13 or earlier of Simple GIS Client, although there are some new features that we'll also cover in this demonstration as well. Um, But just to refresh, if you've seen the introduction video for Simple GIS Client version 14, then you know when you first launch the application, you'll be brought to the new project screen where it'll list the various project templates you can use to help you get started creating a new project. Now, if you have created projects before, you'd be brought to the Open Project screen where you can open existing projects. But you can always get back to the new project screen just by clicking on the new project button here along the left hand side of the application window, or from the file drop down menu in the upper left corner of your application. So in particular, the project template we're going to be covering today is the Street Atlas template. And it's the second one located from the left, and if you actually click on its tile, you can see that this is the template that allows you to download detailed street map data to your local machine. And so if you had a laptop or a Windows tablet device, this is a great template to use to download detailed street map data to your local machine that you could then take out to the field, even pair up with a GPS receiver, like some of the little disc GPS receivers that can plug into your USB port or through a Bluetooth connection, and use that to track your locations. Also, you can get navigation and routing support, and just also do general field use analysis or visualization while you're out in the field, completely offline without having to require an internet connection. So to begin with, to create a new project based on this template, as I said, you would select this tile. So to actually create the project, you would just simply double click on the tile. And again, it's called the Street Atlas, Local Routable and Geocoded Detailed Street Map. And as you double click on that tile, you'll be presented with a dialog box prompting you to select the area that you wish to download. So right now, Simple GIS supports all of the U.S. States, so you can download any individual U.S. state, or if you would like, you could download the entire U.S. data set by clicking on the first selection here where it says select area to download in this dialog box, and the very first selection says all. Now this is quite a large data set, and as you click on a particular data set, it'll give you the approximate download size here at the bottom, as well as the uncompressed size once the data is uncompressed to your hard drive. So in this case, you can see for the entire US data set, it's about 16.8 gigabytes of data that is in its compressed form, and then when it's uncompressed onto your hard drive, it's about 50 gigabytes of data. So it is quite extensive, quite large. So you just need to make sure you have enough disk space and that you allow enough time for this data to download. As the speed will vary greatly depending upon your internet connection speed. So again, you would need internet connectivity when you first launch this to be able to download the data. But then once you have the data downloaded and saved to your hard drive, then you could work offline and would no longer need the internet connectivity. You may also notice a couple of options here at the top, a couple of radio buttons. One of them is pre-processed regions, and this is by far the fastest if you're just wanting to hurry up and get some data and get started. So this downloads a data set that's already been processed and it's ready to go. So it'll download to your local machine. You can begin using it right away. The drawback from it is you can only download a single state at a time. And so you could, for instance, download any particular state you clicked on, or as I said, you could download the entire US data set if you needed data that would cross over state boundaries. Now, you can also create your own custom regions, and what that allows you to do, if you was to select this radio button, it would allow you to select multiple states, and it would actually download the raw data and then merge these data sets together into a single data set on your hard drive, and it would process to create the routing and the geocoding databases associated with those merged data sets. Now, because this has to do a lot of post-processing after downloading the data, again, this is the slower option, and you would have to allow more time for the application to churn through this data and actually process it to create the merged data sets. So unless you just really have a need for merging multiple states together into a custom data set, I would recommend using the pre-processed regions, especially if you're going to be confined to a single state, and then you can just download that state. And if you are going to be crossing over multiple states for like routing, navigation, anything like that, I would just go ahead and download the entire US data set. And so that would be my recommendation for that. So for the purpose of today's demonstration, we're going to use the pre-processed regions, and we're going to download data for the state of Louisiana. In addition, you can also select the folder location where you would like to download this data and for Simple GIS to create this project. So you can navigate to any folder you want here. You can select a specific drive if you want it to go to the specific folder, and you can even create a new folder if you needed to create a new subfolder underneath a folder that you have selected. Which that's what I'm going to do at this point in time. I'm going to select this new folder button, and I'm going to create a new folder underneath my public documents folder. So when I create this button, I get an input box for me to input the name for this new folder, and you can name this whatever you would like, as long as it is a standard folder naming convention. In my case, I'm simply going to name it Louisiana, so I'll know that's the data set, the project that I'm actually downloading and creating. And so as I enter that and click OK, you see that it created this new folder underneath my public documents. And now at this point in time, all I have to do is click the Apply button to begin the download process. Again, as you click on a data set, if you notice at the bottom of the dialog box, it'll tell you the approximate download size. This is the compressed file size. So for the state of Louisiana, that's approximately 250 megabytes, as well as what the size of the data set will be once it's uncompressed on your hard drive, which in this case is approximately 810 megabytes for the state of Louisiana. So at this point, I'll click the Apply button. And as I do that, it will begin the download process. So it's actually reaching out to the Simple GIS download site to download the zip file that contains that particular data set. It'll give you a progress of the current download here in the middle, so you can see the status of the download as it's progressing. So at this point in time, I'll simply pause the video to allow this to finish downloading, and then we'll resume as this begins to complete its download operation. So as you can see, the data is just about finished downloading, and I should have mentioned earlier that this is a one-time download. So once you've actually downloaded the data, you don't have to repeat this process unless you just simply want to refresh the data. Typically, we refresh these data sets once a year, and so they are refreshed on an annual basis. As you can see, it is now extracting the data. So it is downloaded, it's now extracting it into our folder. And this data is a combination of data from the OpenStreetMap initiative or organization. If you may not be aware, that OpenStreetMap is a kind of an open source collaboration of people from all over that update these road networks and features. And it also uses data from the U.S. Census Bureau as well for some of the boundary information, like the state boundaries and county boundaries, zip code areas, and what have you. Also, for its geocoding data set, it uses data from the U.S. Census Bureau, as well as from the Open Addresses organization. So it's a combination of data sets that is pulled together to create these detailed street maps. And so as you see, it has finished downloading the data. It has extracted the data and opened up our new project file. And actually, it is a new project file. If we were to save this project as it is, it's already been named. And actually, if you were to go under the File drop-down menu and select Open Project, and if you were to navigate to Louisiana folder where we downloaded, you would see a new project, a Simple GIS Client project file called Street Map. So I just wanted to show you that this is the project file. So you wouldn't actually, the next time you launch Simple GIS, go through the process of creating the new project, because that's what we just did. You would simply come here to the folder where you downloaded the data to and select the Simple GIS project called Street Map to open, unless when you did the file save, you saved it to a different file name, then whatever that file name is, you would open that project file. So I'm just going to open up Street Map. And again, we're back at the project that we just had open earlier. And so this is your project file. And right now, again, this was just a state of Louisiana. We download it, but we can zoom in. As we zoom in, we'll see more and more detail come in on the map. So in this case, we are now seeing county boundaries, or since we're in Louisiana, this is actually called parish. So this is parish boundaries, along with major water features and different city names. So here's the capital in Baton Rouge. And as we continue to zoom in, we would see more and more features come into play. So I'm just going to drag a box here, zoom in. Now we're starting to see the major highways such as interstates, U.S. highways, some of the different town boundaries come into play. And we can continue to zoom in, and we'll see more and more features like some of the minor roadways, some of the smaller towns and villages that now start to appear on the map and are labeled. And then as we continue to zoom in, we'll see more and more features come into play. We actually have some building footprints that are now coming in, and then as well as recreational areas like parks, as well as some cemeteries, railroad tracks. And then as we continue to zoom in even to the lower level, we start seeing some of the points of interest appear on the map as well, like eating places, restaurants, fuel stations, schools, what have you. Again, this program is geocoded, so this data set does have its own geocoding database, so we can locate street address, which you can do on other projects as well in Simple GIS. It's just that if there is no local geocoded database, it would use the U.S. Census Geocoder API to locate street addresses, which would require you to have internet connectivity. But in this particular project, it has its own local geocoding database, so you could use this completely offline. Put in the right address here. So as you put in an address, of course it'll zoom to that address. You can also just put in place names. And then it will zoom to that as well. And it just places a red marker on that location. The other thing that you can do is, if you do have an external GPS device, so in this particular case I have a GlobalSat, it's the BU353S4, and that's plugged into my USB drive. If you wanted to track your location, you can just click on this click to begin GPS tracking tool button. As you do, it'll connect to the GPS and actually zoom to your location, and it would actually keep track of your position on your map. So if you were driving, you would see the arrow move as you drive and track your position. As your position travels off screen, it would recenter your position back to the center of the map. So that just shows you how you can use the GPS feature. And really, like I said, I'm using the global sat USB connected. This is kind of the little puck or disk receiver. But any GPS receiver that supports the NMEA 0183 protocol, or if it supports the Windows sensor API service function, it should work with Simple GIS. And to connect your GPS, you would actually do your configuration. There's a configuration located underneath the GPS routing drop-down menu where you can configure your routing and GPS options. If you used to click on that menu option, you would present it with a dialog box that has all of the settings that you can use for your GPS. So if you're using one that uses the NMEA protocol, of course, if you know the specific COM port you're communicating on, you can specify that. Otherwise, you could just click or check this auto scan ports, and Simple GIS will scan all the ports until it found the port that was being communicated on. You also need to know the baud rate of your device. So some devices do have a different baud rate. So you just need to know the baud rate of the device, which should come with the documentation with the device, as well as some of these other settings. And this is only relevant for devices that are communicating through the NMEA protocol. If it's using a Windows 10 sensor, like some of the u-blox devices, so some of the u-blox and GPS receivers support the Windows 10 sensor platform, you wouldn't have to worry with these settings. It would pick up the device automatically through the Windows 10 or Windows 11 API sensor service. This should already be set for you in the project, so you shouldn't have to fool with this. This is the routing database that was downloaded with the data set we just downloaded, as well as the geocoding database. And then these are some of the default symbols for the routes, how they appear on the map, as well as your position and location symbols. There's a couple of other settings here. This is really if you are pushing your GPS location out to a Simple GIS server instance for tracking of vehicle locations. You would just specify the host of that Simple GIS server that you're pushing this information to. If it required authentication to the server, you would need to enter the username and password, as well as the interval, how often you wish to push your position to that server. This would only be for those users that are using a Simple GIS server instance for vehicle location. For breadcrumb settings, so you can track your position through your breadcrumb to a special layer, and this just determines the interval and how often your position will be recorded to that breadcrumb layer. So if you're traveling and you wanted to record your route or your positions as you travel, you could record that to a special layer we call the breadcrumb layer, and this specifies, in this case it's set to 10 seconds, and you can change that just by dragging the slider, and this just tells you how often it'll be recording your position to that breadcrumb layer. So in this case, when it's set to 10 seconds, every 10 seconds it'll take a snapshot of my position and record it to the breadcrumb layer if I have turned on breadcrumb tracking. So really there's two steps. This determines how often to record the breadcrumb, and there's a tool that actually activates the breadcrumb tracking from the map that we'll cover in a second. These are API keys, which you really don't need if you're using this local data set, but this is the US Census key. This allows you to download census demographic data through Simple GIS. It's not strictly required. They do ask that you get a key from the US Census Bureau. Their service is free, and you can easily sign up for a key just by clicking this link here. There's also, if you don't have the local street atlas data set, you can still do routing and as well as drive time, polygons or rings analysis in Simple GIS. using the Open Route service. That's a service that's available, and Simple GIS has an API built into that service, but it does require a token that you can sign up for, again, by clicking this link, and you can do routing. It does require internet connectivity, however. The points of interest setting is for using, if you're doing routing and you want to, alongside your route, look for various points of interest that you might want to add as stops along your route. This just tells you the layer that contains your points of interest features, and that's actually on these data sets that you download. If you're using the Simple GIS Street Atlas data sets, there's a layer called points of interest, which is selected for you. The classification field, this is just the attribute field in that layer that's telling you the types of points of interest, and the name is just the description of the feature in the points of interest layer. So you can use the default layer that is downloaded with the data set in Simple GIS, or if you had your own, let's say, data set in a shapefile or Excel file of different areas of points of interest, you could add that layer into your map and set that as your points of interest layer as well. You don't have to use the default layer that's provided with the data sets that you download with the Simple GIS data sets. And then your navigation units is simply set to either English or metric. And then one other setting here at the very bottom is this little checkbox called Auto Rotate Map. That is why you're tracking your position, whether you're doing navigation or you're just simply tracking your position on the screen. If this checkbox is checked, it will automatically orient the map or rotate it to your direction of travel. If you don't want it to auto rotate, you would just simply uncheck that box. So I mentioned the breadcrumb tracking, and that's located right next to our position tracking that we clicked on. You see that it's now, the position tracking is red, indicating that we are tracking our position. And of course, this is the indicator here. This is my current position that is tracking on the map. If I wanted to record my breadcrumbs, so I want it to record my positions over a period of time, there's this tool right next to that. If I hover my mouse over it, it says click to begin breadcrumb tracking. And the actual layer that it's going to be storing those positions in is located. This is actually a group layer called breadcrumb layers, and here's the actual layer. This is GPS breadcrumbs. And so it'll store those points into that layer. And of course the legend is just set to this blue star, but that can be changed. It's just basic Simple GIS functionality by double clicking on the layer, going to its legend properties and changing the symbol there. We're not going to cover that in this tutorial, but just know that that's easily changed. But to begin the breadcrumb tracking, you would click on this tool here, and it looks like kind of a, well, almost like a sine wave, but it's got points along it. And as you click on it, you'll see it change from grid to red, indicating that it is currently tracking. And you can see it's already placed a blue star at my current position here. And if I was traveling, as my location would change, it would begin recording those points as I traveled along my route using that interval that was specified in the GPS routing configuration. Also notice that while you're tracking your GPS, your current speed would be shown here in the lower right corner of your map as well. And that's coming from the GPS unit. To just turn off breadcrumb recording, you just simply click this tool again. And again, now you see that the help hint shows click to stop recording breadcrumb. And as I click that, I see that it changes now back to a gray outline from the red, indicating that it's inactive. The next tool button here is to save GPS breadcrumbs to a new layer. So if I wanted to save the current points in my GPS breadcrumbs layer to a new layer for use at some other time, I just simply click on that menu option. I would get a file dialog box, and here it would prompt me to enter in, and I could change my location, my file location if I wanted to, my folder location, but I would just enter in a file name from a new breadcrumb layer. click Save, and then it's going to ask me, do I wish to add the saved breadcrumbs as a new layer to your map? So it's actually created a new layer of those breadcrumbs that was in it. If I wanted to add it as a new layer to my map, I could click Yes, and it would add that layer to my map. The other thing I can do is I can come here to my breadcrumbs, and then I could clear all the breadcrumbs out of my existing breadcrumbs layer. This is the main layer that everything gets recorded to. So if I wanted to clear it out and start fresh, since I have now saved my breadcrumbs to a new layer, I can just click this button. And it's just going to remove all my old positions from that layer. You notice it looks like I still see them on the map because remember I saved my breadcrumbs to this new layer here that is currently turned on. If I turn this layer off, I see that actually the breadcrumbs have been cleared out. So this just allows you to save breadcrumbs when you want to, and if you want to save them out to new layers for reference for something else later, you can easily do that, as well as clearing the breadcrumbs out of the default layer when you no longer need them. The next tool is the actual routing. So if you click on this tool here, this begins your routing dialog box. And so basically, I mean, obviously the minimum you need is where you're starting from, a starting position, and a destination where you're going to. Now this can be a street address you can type in to this location. You could do it that way. You could check this box to use your current location. If you used to check it, you'll see it will populate with the latitude, longitude that it's reading from your GPS unit. So this is only available if your GPS is actually connected. Or you can click a location on the map. And as you click a point on the map, it would put that latitude, longitude here. And you can do that for the start from and from the final destination. So final destination, let's say if I wanted to go to a place, I don't have a street address, but let me get my spelling right. So I just type in that destination. And now what you can do is basically just to calculate a route from the starting location to the final destination, you can just come to calculate route. But before we do that, notice one of the new features in Simple GIS 14 and with the new data sets is the ability to calculate a route by quickest or shortest duration, or by shortest length, miles. So this quickest is by duration, quickest duration, shortest is by shortest mileage. So if I do quickest and hit calculate route, it's going to calculate the route. Let me turn off my tracking for now so that as we do this, it'll zoom to the entire route. So when I did it before, because I had my GPS tracking on, it automatically stayed centered on my GPS location. I turned off my GPS tracking by just clicking this button again. You see that it went from red to gray. And now when I hit calculate route, it gives me the total route overview. And so this is the highlight of the route. Here's the directions for the route. And so if this is simply all you want it to do, and you want it to start navigation, you could do that. It would turn on your GPS tracking automatically, and it would show your position, it would track it, and then as you traveled along your route, it would give you turn-by-turn directions here in this area, as well as speaking the turn-by-turn through your GPS, through your laptop or PC speakers. So through your laptop speakers, or if you had a Windows tablet, it would be through those speakers. Again, the device does have to be a Windows device, since Simple GIS is a Windows specific application. Now notice you can click on any one of these locations. Let me turn my GPS tracking off so it doesn't keep recentering on my position. But as I click on a particular turn location, it'll zoom to that location on your map as well. The other things, as I mentioned, if you want it to, instead of quickest duration, if you want it to calculate route based on shortest distance, you just click that radio button, click calculate route again, and now it will calculate a route based upon the route that has the shortest distance. Now it may take a longer overall travel time, but it will have the shortest mileage. Other things that can be done is if I calculated a route and if I wanted to locate specific points of features along my route. So for instance, let's say if I wanted to look for food locations in about an hour from my starting point. There is a tool button here, search for points of interest along the route, and it's this little button here next to the stops along route. You click that tool, you get your find points of interest dialog box, so you can select the type of points of interest you're interested in. I'm going to select a long route, and I'm going to say you can select units of measure in minutes or in mileage. So I'm going to say in 60 minutes within 2 miles of my route. And then I'm going to click the search location, and I see here are the options that it found within 60 minutes of my starting location and located within 2 miles of my route, places I could stop. So a lot of fast food areas. Let's say if I wanted to stop here, looks like a smokehouse and seafood. Here's a location here along the route you can select. And if I wanted to add that as a stop along my route, I can click this add as stop to route. And it's now added to my route as an additional stop. And if I actually look at my travel directions, I would see that I would have a stop right here. So it has added that in. And if I was to zoom in to that, I can see that it did provide driving directions to stop at this location before continuing on to my final destination. So that's one way to add stops. Of course, you can add stops as well just by simply, again, typing in a street address. You can also select points on the map as additional stops. So let me remove this one for now. And let's just say if I wanted to add a stop, and I'm just going to select a point on the map, and I'll click a point over here. And then you see it adds the latitude, longitude here in my box. To add it as a stop, I come down to click the plus button. It adds it as a stop along my route. And then all I have to do is calculate route again, and it would calculate the route to pass through that stop before continuing to the final destination. I can remove a stop along the route by clicking the minus button here. So I just highlight the stop that I want to remove and then click the minus button. And it would actually remove it, and now I can calculate the route again, and it takes it out. The other thing you can do, let me try something here to illustrate another feature that you can do. Let me get in close enough to see some of these stops. The other way you can add stops to your route is through points in another layer. So if you had another layer loaded into your map that had points, so this could be customer locations that maybe you've loaded from an Excel spreadsheet, or you've imported, from an Excel spreadsheet a set of street addresses of customer locations. You could use that to add as stops along the route. And the way you would do that is this tool button here right next to the stop. It's just right next to the button that you would click to select a point by clicking on the map. If you click on this tool button, if you hover your mouse over it, it says import stops from a layer. And so if you click on this, you'll get a new dialog box that comes up and it says select layer to import as stops. And of course it has some help here. It kind of guides you through this process. But here it lists all of the point layers that's available in your map currently. And so you would select the point layer in your current map that you want to import. So let's say if I wanted points of interest. And now it says select attributes to identify stops. And what this is this is the description that will show up in your stops list, so you know what it is that you're stopping at. So I'm going to select name in this case. And as I select that, I'm going to click this button here that says append field to identifier, and you see it places that field under the waypoint identifier, which means that's just how that point will be identified in your stops. And now I need to select the features that I want to import. I could select all features of selected layer. I'm not going to do that because we have literally thousands of points of interest in this case. You can select features from your map is the other option, which is what I'm going to do. And so I'm going to click on this button. And then what this allows you to do is simply drag a box around the stops that you want to select. So I'm going to select Walgreens. Let's go and let's select a couple of more. I can't zoom out too far, it goes away. So again, I'm going to at Walgreens, I'm going to use my shift key while I'm holding that down to drag a box to select and add to my selection. I'm going to select the Texaco station. So now you see I have Walgreens selected, I have Texaco selected. Let's see, let's find some others. Let's go to Sonic as well. So we have 3 features selected here. Again, I use my shift key. So as I'm selecting features, if I hold my shift key down, it keeps what I had selected already and adds to it. Otherwise, it would have replaced my selection with what I just highlighted on the map. So again, I have to use my shift key. But at this point in time, I'm going to import these selected features as stops. And if I click on this button, I now see that it imported those 3 features into my stops along my route. And I'm going to change my destination. I'm not going to go to Shreveport anymore. I'm just going to select a destination here on the route somewhere. So I'm just going to click a point on the map. Let's say I need to go here to this location on the map. Then the other thing I'm going to want to do is optimize my order of stops. So I want to order these in the way that makes the most sense, to go from a starting location, pass through all 3 points, and then arrive at my final destination. And so now I'll click Calculate Map. And in this particular case, I see that it didn't really change the order. I think that's the order that was in there. So it has me going through Sonic first, then the Walgreens, and then going to Texaco before arriving at my final destination. So that just shows you how you can use these stops to calculate routes to go through multiple stops, starting from your starting point and arriving at your final destination. If you wanted to create a report of this particular route, you can click on this Create Report. This will actually create an Excel spreadsheet that has all of this information in it. I'm just going to overwrite one that's already in here called My Report. And so as you do that, it'll create the report. And it'll actually create the report as an Excel spreadsheet that you can then open to view. It'll automatically open for you as you click the Create Report. So it's actually opening up my Excel now. The computer's running a little slow right now, but here is the final report. So it gives you where you're starting from, what your stop locations are, where you're finishing it, your total trip distance, total travel time, and then it gives you the actual directions here below that particular location. So if you needed a report for whatever reason of a particular route, you could generate that. So let me close my Excel, close this down, get back to Simple GIS. And so that is the routing functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and close this dialog box by clicking on the X in its upper right corner. See that it resizes my map at this point in time. And then the other thing too that you can do is there is also a nighttime mode. So if the regular orientation of this map is, or the legends produces too much glare at night, which sometimes that can happen on some laptops and stuff, you can click on this tool button here, which is right next to the routing button, to toggle the nighttime daytime mode. And all that does is simply change the legend and some of the background colors to produce less glare. So this may be easier visually at nighttime so that you don't have as much glare coming from your screen. And you can toggle back and forth between the two by simply clicking this tool button, toggle nighttime, daytime mode. So that is the Street Atlas project. Of course, this project, you can do all of the other functionality that you can do in any other Simple GIS project. It doesn't limit you in any way. Again, this just helps get you started with downloading your data set and getting it set up for you. But I mean, you have all of your same analysis functions, so you can generate heat maps, you can run queries, you can do all of that same type of functionality, as well as creating drive time rings, drive time polygons, publishing maps. Again, all of the same functionality that's available in any other project in Simple GIS. So, hope this was helpful. Please visit our website. The website is all one word. It's just simplegissoftware.com. You can click on our Contacts Us page if you have any comments or questions, or feel free to leave comments on the video itself. Again, I hope this has been helpful. Hope you have a good day.